I love to begin my mornings by sitting in quiet meditation, then talking with my Sasquatch family. "What do you learn at the crick?" Shenunda, my Sasquatch guide, asked me this morning. I thought of all the days, even since childhood, when I played in tiny streams of water, lifting rocks to take a peek at what was beneath, carefully resettling them again. Often a crayfish would scurry out, and if I was quick enough, I could nab him up and put him on the ground for closer inspection. Delicate water bugs with their skeletal bodies and jacked up legs would scoot across the surface around me as I examined the beehive-type nesting shells of larvae attached like cement to the undersurface of the rocks. While I busied myself in the creek examining rocks, watching how the water curved around my hand, inserted just a bit beneath its ever-changing surface, mottled with patches of reflections of the clouds, experimenting with shifting uninhabited rocks just a bit to the side, or stacking them high. The area around me would transform. It felt quieter, greener, the trees wider, with thicker bark, and the flowers more brilliant. Suddenly I knew where Shenunda was going with this. It was happening even then, wasn't it? She grinned and nodded. What didn't make sense, though, was how this had escaped me until this moment. I was in the midst of stepping, truly stepping into a different time, and I did not know it. Or did I, and I just didn't remember. That part was never important to you, sorting out what was happening and why. You just let it be. You were able to be transported, to allow your mind to wander at times, and then time wandered. You all have the ability to do this. But just as you'd forgotten how many times you've done this, you've forgotten how easily it's accomplished. Although I'd said I'd forgotten, that wasn't until, and Shenunda knew this. For the last couple days, I've been thinking about a time when I was little, playing just this way, getting lost in the moments in the water, and looked up to see a dinosaur standing nearby. I'd actually moved out of the water and was standing on the hillside and looking down to the little valley with the stream where I'd been playing. I was shocked, and here's where my memory differs from what I'd experienced. I asked my mother recently if she remembered when I found the injured donkey by the creek. She looked at me like I was crazy, told me that I've never found a donkey there. I reminded her of what had happened and told her that my dad walked it down to the neighbor's house. She said that they'd never had a donkey, and she didn't remember anything about this. I insisted that she was the one who'd forgotten, and she asked me, well, did I remember the neighbors ever having a donkey? No, I didn't. And would she have forgotten something like me finding a donkey? Not likely. So, yes, this experience had been on my mind, and what kept interrupting my thoughts was, that was the day you saw the dinosaur, not a donkey. Seemed even more odd, now that I was thinking about it, that I'd ever accepted that it was our neighbor's donkey. I knew that they had never had one, but somehow it had all made sort of sense at all those years ago, and I hadn't even reconsidered it. So now Shenunda had prompted me to return to that moment, to fully remember what I'd experienced. The dinosaur stood alongside the creek where I'd been playing, casually munching some grasses, and swung her head to face me. She was brilliant with her soft greenish-brown hide, a long, smooth physique with a long neck and squarish head. I felt a strange sense of calmness overcome me, and my heart slowed. In her eyes there was such tenderness and love, like we were the very best of friends. She was small compared to the images one would expect for one of her species, and could mistakenly count her as a juvenile by those standards. But I knew that she'd made that she could choose to be big or however small she needed to be. With our eyes connected, she imparted deep wisdom and love, and I saw myself as a grown woman by her side. She was enormous. Indeed, we traveled together for many years and experienced much together. Ours was a serene relationship that existed as naturally as putting one foot in front of the other. That's how well we knew each other, with complete confidence in our friendship and one another's ability to tackle any situation that could be problematic. Coming back into this experience as old as I am now, 50, I can see how I was immediately sprung into a conflict experiencing this as a child. And even as I write these words, I can't help but imagine what a reader would be thinking right now, surmising me crazy to say the least, unless you've also experienced something that just didn't make logical sense to you. Do you have a story that you've repeated seemingly verbatim and not looked into it further? One that others don't remember as you do, or even at all. Maybe it just sneaks around the corners of your mind and you can't quite put your finger on it. But it's there. All of us have had these moments, and even now they're showing up more often as synchronicities. I don't know how to say it to you more plainly now, but that in honoring what I know to be true, no matter how ever fantastical it seems, is pushing me into greater confidence of who I am. And that's why it's so important, why it matters so much. This is the time to return, to gather to myself the real bits and pieces I've scattered about that carry the stamp of my own signature. They're there, hidden among monotonous activities. I suppose this event in particular provides an excellent opportunity for my logic to reconsider. I'm never really able to conjecture a definite practical reasoning for it anyways. My neighbors never owned a donkey, and I don't have any memory of walking this donkey to their house with my father. That's the part that is missing. But like a groove cut into a record, it's played itself over and over, providing a cover story for a supernatural experience. These are the times we need to return to, and we can do it as easily as relegating our quiet times to that purpose. This is also why, for many of us, connecting with our Sasquatch family aids the process. They were there with us then, just like they are now. Now it is no longer unsettling for me to remember that day. I see it for what it is, that it was never meant to make sense or do anything more than it did at that time. She visited me because we were friends, and she knew that eventually it would bring me into the moment that I'm in now. As a child, before my conscious mind could get a grip on what was happening, I was so happy to see her. But once my rational mind kicked in, though, there was such a shock that all I could think to do was tell my mother. Because the image had already made an impact, it needed to be more explainable, so although I didn't tell my mother, I kept the idea of having found something strange, a donkey, by the creek. Although it was experienced in the early days of this lifetime, the event has folded in on itself with me revisiting it as an adult. Even as I write this, dreams that I've often had of being in a tropical rainforest are returning to me. There is a part of me that hesitates about sharing this with you, but it's my way. It's always been my way to keep the stories and tell them back. If I share them with you and give you a thing to ponder, then it is worthwhile, no matter what you think of me personally. You can find your own truth by rejecting or rejoicing yourself somewhere between mine. I am smiling now as I realize that in a way Shenunda tricked me. She needed to, though. I've pondered this on and off for a few days now, so if I'd sat here with the intention of writing what literally happened that day, my mind would have gotten ahead of me, calculating scientific probabilities of timelines crossing, misted veils becoming transparent, etc., missing the heart of the matter entirely. I had to experience this myself in my own way. If Shenunda would have told me this morning that I was going to tell everyone about having seen a dinosaur when I was a kid, I wouldn't even have started to write this. But now it feels right. Oh, and water? No coincidence this happened in near water. But more on that next time.